Chapter 11, Taking Sides. This is how the war was fought. On one side was the Berlin-Rome-Tokyo axis, led by Adolf Hitler, Benito Mussolini, and Japan's premier, General Hideki Tojo. On the other side were three major Allied forces. Who were they? Who were their leaders? President Franklin Delano Roosevelt represented the United States. He was already a voice of freedom respected all over the world. Britain, the second Allied power, was led by Winston Churchill. Like Roosevelt, Churchill had a powerful voice and was inspiring when he spoke. Churchill had an American mother and a father who was a British lord. When he was young, he was a poor student, but he got better. He went to Sandhurst, the British West Point, and became an army officer, a good one. He got medals for bravery. Then he became a newspaper reporter, learned to pilot a plane, wrote history books, entered politics, and became a member of Britain's parliament. He was one of the first Englishmen to see the danger of Hitler's Nazi party and to speak against it. That was when most people in England and America were acting like ostriches. They buried their heads in the sand, closed their ears, and didn't want to hear anything about war. The third Allied power, was it France? No, France was under German control. However, as you know, a Free French army was saved at Dunkirk. It was led by General Charles de Gaulle, and it did fight with the Allies. How about China? Was China the third power? No, China was fighting Japan, and China was in turmoil. Civil war between the communists and the nationalists had broken out in China in the 1930s. That war wouldn't be finally decided until 1949. The communists would win. You may have a hard time believing what the third Allied power was, but here it is: Soviet Russia, the USSR. Russia's leader in 1941 was the dictator Joseph Stalin. He was head of the Soviet Communist Party. He ruled Russia using secret police and terror. Many of his own people hated him, but others were fooled by Stalin. Roosevelt may have been one of them. Dictators often have charm, and Joe Stalin had a lot of charm when he wanted. But what mattered was that he was fighting Hitler, and so were we. As Winston Churchill said, "If Hitler invaded hell, I would make a least favorable reference to the devil in the House of Commons." Russia, however, didn't start out on the Allied team. Here is some background. In 1939, Hitler and Stalin signed a friendship pact. They said they would not fight each other. They made plans together to march into Poland, one from the east, the other from the west, and to gobble up the nation. They did it. Poland was squashed and divided. Before the Nazi army marched into Poland, Hitler told his generals, "The victor will not be asked afterward whether or not he told the truth. In starting and waging war, it is not right that matters, but victory. Close your hearts to pity. Act brutally. The stronger is in the right." His generals did as they were told. That was when France and England finally realized they couldn't avoid war. Although now it would be a difficult one. They had let Germany build a huge military force. At the same time, the free nations had cut their armies and navies. There wasn't a lot anyone could do when Germany marched armies into Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg, and France. The Nazis were winning everywhere. The German Air Force, the Luftwaffe, soon began dropping bombs on England. Tons and tons of bombs. Then Hitler made some stupid moves. First, he went into Greece and Yugoslavia, where his forces faced some heroic fighters. That stopped Germany for a while. Then Hitler double-crossed Stalin. He decided to invade Russia. That may have been his plan all along. He had even written a book called Mein Kampf. It means My Struggle in Germany. That told all about his goal of world domination. No human being has ever declared or recorded what he wanted to do more often than me, he said. Anyone who read Hitler's writings knew what he had planned. He said that Germans were the master race and they needed more room and other nations to serve them as slaves. Churchill and Roosevelt paid attention. They knew Hitler was capable and effective as well as evil. For a long time, most other politicians just didn't take him seriously. But Hitler didn't intend to share power. The Russians were a threat to his goal of world domination. So when some of his generals told him not to go into Russia, he didn't listen. He needed oil and wheat and other resources from Russia. Besides, he thought Russia would be an easy victim. So did experts everywhere. The American Secretary of War predicted it would take Germany 3 months to conquer Russia. The Germans prepared the most massive army ever assembled. Their forces stretched from Finland to the Black Sea. They attacked with the latest military equipment, tanks, bombs, and artillery. At first, the Germans had an easy time of it. The Russians weren't prepared. Much of their military equipment was out of date. Hitler instructed the German army to turn Russia into a slave nation. The Nazis murdered millions of Russians. But check a map and notice the size of Russia. Look at Moscow and Leningrad, which today is called by its old name, St. Petersburg. Those cities are very far north. They are cold places. Winter came early in the fall of 1941. The first snow fell in Moscow on October 2nd. The Germans weren't prepared for the cold. They got stuck in a Russian winter. It happened to be the coldest winter in 30 years. The temperature dropped to 60 degrees below zero. The German army was far from home and having a hard time getting supplies and food. German soldiers froze. German soldiers starved. So did Russians. It was a disaster for both sides. But the Russians were at home and able to outlast the hungry, discouraged German army. FDR sent his friend Harry Hopkins to Russia. Give us anti-aircraft guns and aluminum and we can fight for 3 or 4 years, said Stalin. He was right. He sent guns, ammunition, food, tanks, planes, and more. The Russians gave their lives. The Russians went all out in their fight against Nazi Germany. No nation fought harder. No one knows how many Russians died in World War II. Some say 15 million. Some say more. No other country has ever suffered such war losses. Russia was our ally and friend during the World War, but Russia under Soviet communism was a dreadful place. Stalin was a vicious dictator. Stalin expected something for fighting Hitler. What he expected and got was domination over the other countries of Eastern Europe. Could Hitler have been destroyed without Stalin's help? Perhaps not. Certainly, it would have taken many, many more American and British lives.